something about it. So, in February of this year, I began to listen with my inner ear. I began to hear him tell me he had more than enough money, with plenty to spare. In May, he told me he came into an inheritance. He didn't say how much. So, if you will do anything to anyone, believing you are really doing it to Christ, you will be amazed at what will happen in your world. Now, let me share with you 2 stories that were waiting for me when I returned, but the first from Barbados recently. This gentleman said, "A co-worker and I have lunch almost every day together." For some time, he spent the entire lunch period telling me about his financial problems. Although I appeared to be interested, I really wasn't, and wondered to myself how he could possibly believe the things he was telling me. After hearing the same stories over and over again, I decided that indifference was not the answer, and I must do something about it. So, in February of this year, I began to listen with my inner ear. I began to hear him tell me he had more than enough money, with plenty to spare. In May, he told me he came into an inheritance. He didn't say how much, but the first thing he did was buy himself a cabin cruiser that sleeps 4. Then he sent his oldest son off to college, made extensive repairs on his home, bought himself a new wardrobe and a new car. But more important to me, I discovered that my awareness has power, that indifference is not enough, I have to act. My friend acted, and as he did it unto one of the least of these, he did it unto me. Then he said every week, "I have my hair cut by a certain barber." Even though I have moved, I continued to go to his shop every Saturday, until one day it was closed. Deciding to look locally, I found a shop with 4 barbers and sat in the owner's chair. Each week, regardless of my request, he would not take off enough of my hair. So, having watched the other barber, I decided to go to number 4. If you know anything about a barber shop, the number 4 man is the last one to arrive and is working his way up to number 1. While sitting in his chair, I asked him if he liked barbering, and he replied that he loved it and would love to go to an internationally recognized school for barbering. Once I discovered that he really wanted not just to be a barber, but to be the best barber possible, I began to listen with my inner ear and heard him tell me how he graduated from the school and how much he had learned. And do you know, he not only went to the school but was the top man in his class. Then, he bought out the barber, changed the personnel, and even has a receptionist to answer the phones. Now, I see him every Saturday at 11 a.m. by appointment. Here is a man who saw Christ in one of the least of these, and clothed him in his desire, fed his desire, and gave him the living water to drink through the use of his imagination. In this world, all kinds of services are needed. What if there were no barbers, only hippies, and you had to cut your own hair? Suppose there were no waitresses or ladies who are willing to clean our homes. They are Christ. Each time Doris comes to clean our home, Christ walks through our door. One day she told me of a friend who had an accident. He wasn't hurt, but the car was. Then I said, "Doris, you can always buy a car, but your friend was made by God, so rejoice because he was not injured." Do you know that thought changed her completely? She attends the Catholic Church, but was never told that God made her because he loved her, that he never made a thing he didn't love. Man makes cars and can replace them, but no man can replace Doris. That's how valuable she is in the eyes of God. Use the talent that God gave you. Don't bury it, afraid to test its power. Exercise each talent, and as you do, your 5 will make 10. If you can only use 2, use them to the best of your ability, and they will increase. Then you will be highly commended, for you are not called upon to share, physically, with others, but to use your imagination and see them as you would like to be seen were you in their position. If you were in need, would you not appreciate someone imagining you were affluent? That's what my friend did, and that's what I am asking you to do. Take me seriously and use your wonderful talent. On the right side, we are told that as a shepherd separates the flock, placing the sheep on the right and the goats on the left, so will our Heavenly Father separate us. It is said in a harsh way that those on the left did not apply their talents and are therefore condemned to everlasting hell. But that simply means that when you seem to die here, you enter the same world and continue until you finally take your talent and use it. Everyone is going to die. That's the greatest certainty in the world. If you tell someone who is about to be married that they will be parted in death, they would think you are horrid. So you don't tell them. but when you die here, you are instantly restored to life in a world just like this one. Even though you may have given $1 million to a church or a museum, for that's not using your talent. When you treat anyone as Christ, you do it unto me, and that joy you will feel as you do it. So I said to my friend, the doctor, regardless of who comes through your door, be it the richest man in town or the poorest, treat Christ and watch what happens in your world. When were you in want? When you saw it in another. And when you saw him thirsty, hungry and naked and gave him not, that's when you did not do it to me. It's just as simple as that. If you put your hand in your pocket and give him anything, quite often you are simply perpetuating a bum. But when you think of him as well-dressed, affluent and healthy in mind and body, that's when you did it unto me. You are only doing it to yourself, really, for Christ is the reality, the true identity of every being. The lady of the evening is Christ making a living. Instead of condemning her, lift her up in your mind's eye and see her affluent. She can still play the same part if she so desires, but take her out of the gutter. And remember, God is doing everything that man is doing, for God is man, and there is nothing but God in the world. When you can see this, you will live by it and change your world.